Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The Moore Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines. Available for download on all major digital platforms.
You know, I've been doing this work for 45 years. And over that time, I invented my own technique. I began to find out new things that came in that nobody else had ever discovered. So big and so important, so we called it QHHT, because it's way beyond past life regression. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years. Well, as part of this technique, the very first thing that you do is take the client into a past life. Past life is just the very, very beginning. Then we go to this great power that I work with. To please take advantage of the training that is now available online. You can find it through my website, DoloresCannon.com.
The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online, you're now listening to the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Lee Carroll. After graduating with a business and economics degree from California Western University, Lee Carroll started a technical audio business in San Diego that flourished for 30 years. In 1989, a psychic told him about his spiritual path, and then 3 years later, a second psychic told him the same thing. Both spoke of Kryon, a name that almost nobody had ever heard. Lee describes Kryon as an angelic loving entity from the source, who has been with the earth since the beginning and belonging to the same family as Archangel Michael. The information he publishes both printed and online is intended to help humans ascend to a higher vibrational level. Lee has co-authored 3 books on what he terms indigo children, a new generation of children he says represents an evolution in human consciousness, and more than 11 books on channelings from Kryon. Lee Carroll, welcome to the show.
I am so pleased to be here. Now, I'm sitting here in sunny California, 6 hours different from you. I don't know how the weather is there, but I'm enjoying a nice day, and it's great to be on the air with you.
I very much look forward to having you on the show, and people that in the sort of spiritual circles that I mix with have said that they're very much looking forward to listening back to this. So you've got a lot of people that love you out there. Do you know that?
Yes, I've been told that, and it's difficult for me to grasp that entirely, but I know that because wherever I go, I get treated so well, and I find family. You know how that feels when you meet somebody seemingly for the first time, and yet you feel you've known them forever.
Yes. Well, I remember the first time I met yourself. I just thought what a very nice person you was, and how approachable you were, and how willing to work with the people that you were as well.
We have to remain, I would say, normal. If we get full of ourselves, no matter what we're doing and where we are, I think that it really gets in the way of any kind of spiritual work we're ever going to do. Would you say that was right?
I would, and I suppose with what you do, there's a lot of trust there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
A lot of
Yes,
trust.
my life is very different, and I have to approach things very differently wherever I go, only because of what I do. But I want to tell you that just coming because you're coming from the UK here, and we're talking about it. This was just a marvelous experience for me, and it's up on my site now. The photos are there of me in the church, and the UK was very special. We are going to go back. I'm quite sure. I don't know when. But that I could say that about every place, but I don't. The UK is always been a place that I resound to.
Well, there must be. Do you think that's because of some past life connection there, perhaps, or some future work that you maybe are drawn to do there?
I don't know, and I would say yes to you because it feels that way. When I was a child, for instance, I was born right after World War II ended, and there was so many newsreels and so much to see, especially about the UK, about the RAF, about the history, and I was glued to it as a kid, more than most children. I couldn't get enough of it. So, yeah, there was something there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the audience as well, I know you've sort of answered this question many a times, but for those who are just new or coming into your work, how did you start out? I mean, I know a bit about your background. You know, you was a sound engineer, and there was a pivotal point that you went to see a channeler that changed your life in a sense.
Yes, the story is not a quick one, but I will try to be very concise if I can. But it is true. I was in my mid-40s, a sound engineer with a business that I was very pleased with. There was no reason to exit at all. I had a good career. My wife at the time was esoteric, and I was not. I was an engineer. You know how this is. She took me to two channelers 3 years apart, and I agreed to go only because I think it was an event like a birthday or something. I didn't care, but she did, and so we ended up recording them. You know how you do that, and especially in those days, you have a cassette going. And 3 years apart, these two gentlemen, they were both men, which, by the way, also disturbed me because I thought the esoteric work was only for women back then. And so what happened was that both of these men said the identical same phrase. Now, they didn't know each other. They were something like 30 to 40 years apart in age, and it was 2 years distance between the readings. But the cassettes don't lie, and I knew that I had heard it. And the phrase that they both said was, "There's a magnetic master named Kryon trying to get a hold of you." Now, this is just, and if I can say it without offending anyone, to me it was esoteric nonsense at the time. As an engineer, I didn't care. I didn't believe it, any of these wild things. But I had a puzzle I could not solve because I had two men, 3 years apart, 40 years in age, 30 or 40. Saying the same identical thing. So there was only one way to see whether any of this was real, and that was to sit in a chair and say, okay, whatever funny name you are, Kryon, is there anything there? Literally, I couldn't leave it alone, Kevin. It was a puzzle. Engineers like puzzles. And I couldn't solve it logically. It had to be solved. How could these guys say a phrase about an entity that nobody had ever heard of? So I sat in the chair, and at that point in time, I had emotion. I had many things that I didn't expect, I didn't like. Men don't like to necessarily be overwhelmed by weeping and things of that nature. It made me very uncomfortable. I was not happy, and yet it was a cause and effect relationship that I could not deny. So here I was with something happening to me. I couldn't say it wasn't, or I'd be in denial. And so I started examining what it was. And finally, I realized there was a connection. Something was happening. And very slowly, over the next 3 years, I left my heart open to the possibility that there was more than I was told about our spirituality, about what was inside. And that's when I met Kryon. So everyone has their own story, but this was mine. And it came difficult. In other words, I am a stubborn man, and I'm very practical. I still am. I didn't get converted to the esoteric beliefs. I just, I would say God got bigger for me. That's all that happened.
Absolutely. And prior to this shift, was you quite a was your sort of Christian belief system, or was it some other?
Yes.
Or?
Sure. In fact, you know how we grow up and we become whatever our parents are.
Yeah.
Usually. And so I went to church. Indeed, I was interested in the young people's group and all of these. So I had a grasp all the way through my life. And then I was as you would say, 2 times a year Christian. That would be Easter and Sunday.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, and doing this work as well, I suppose, was you at a point in your life where, in a sense, you cared less what people thought of you prior to this voice coming through? Or did that happen naturally as the connection established itself?
So I'm sorry because you cut out just a little bit. Give me the question again.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just saying, prior to the event, would you say that you cared less about what people were thinking of you at that time? Or was it as the connection was established, did you then start caring less what people thought about you in the sense that you put the ego to one side?
Yeah, I will tell you, and I will be quite frank and as honest as I can, transparent. I was a very angry man. I was an egotistical guy. I was a hermit because of that. I didn't want people to talk to me. I was very opinionated, and I cared a lot what people thought, a lot. And I'm like many, and so it took a long time for this to adjust and for me to understand and realize where to put the ego. It's not, I didn't actually have to try much because with I would say the channeling of the information, it came slowly, but more and more I realized I could relax in all things. Now, I don't care what people think. I really don't. And I have a compassion factor that completely and totally replaces the ego factor that I used to have. I don't get angry anymore. I can't remember the last time I was mad. I get frustrated many times. So it is a life changer. And it's nothing that I've had to do through accepting doctrines or anything else. It's been more of me accepting what is inside that I believe is inside everyone.
Yeah. But it must have been a very brave thing to go down this path, to know or to trust that it was going to bring an income in for yourself so that you could do the work, that there would be people around you to support you, to bring forth the work, that you was going to meet the right people. I mean, this takes a lot of trust, more than people think.
Well, yeah, we teach this. There is we call it controlled synchronicity, controlled accidents. You probably have heard this in many terms, and there's many books been written. There are no accidents and all these things. I believe that spiritually we have a guide and we have guidance in all things. And I asked for synchronicity to move me away from my business and into where I should be, and I got it. It was so clear that I was supposed to move away. I was in a business that was passionate to me. I owned a recording studio and did movie scores, but it didn't make a lot of money. I had a wonderful, beautiful income that was just, week by week because I had a passion for my business. If you talk to restaurant owners or shop owners, this is usually the way it is. They have a passion for their business and it just pays their income. And I didn't think anyone would ever buy this business because it wasn't that lucrative. And someone came along literally at the right time and just like me, loved it and wanted to buy me out, and they did.
Wow.
And it just, at that very perfect point, I really understood, and I understood what was taking place. I had called this in, and it was appropriate, and everybody won. And this business is still here today under the same name, operated by the same man, and he's doing well and just loves it. So there was he benefited and I benefited, and this allowed me then to move out and start writing and traveling. And now I travel for a living, as you know, and that's what I do, of course, all my life. I love it.
And that chap who brought your business is still providing a service to people, just as you are, and he's still spiritually growing from what he's doing.
I'm positive of it. When I say everyone wins, there is an old paradigm that says that if you're going to move forward, you've got to step on someone, or somebody has to lose, or there's got to be a yin and a yang and an ebb and a flow. I believe that everyone can win. And this is proven to me over and over. When you get the right energies together and they're right and correct for the time and the moment, everybody walks away happy.
Yeah.
And this is what has happened in my life. I do a lot of business with hosts and with countries, and as you can imagine, besides just walking around doing spiritual work, when you see somebody coming to a seminar in groups of 600 or 700, you know there's business behind it.
Of course.
There has to be people. There have to be many people, and then you get into personalities and things. And I want to say to you that all the way through my career, I've been blessed with meeting just the right people, beautiful people, and we have business arrangements where often we never sign contracts. We become best friends. And I'll tell you, especially, Kevin, in Europe, I have had some of the most beautiful experiences and met a European family in places I never thought I would. That's why I'm so anxious to finally meet my UK family, and I consider you part of that.
Thank you.
Because I have spent so much of my time with people who don't speak my language, and finally, I get to the UK, and I'm so elated I can actually present in English.
Well, yeah, I mean, it must be very difficult for you, because I've seen you when you do your challengings. Sorry if I get the words properly. Where you have to, you Kryon sat there with you patiently while it's being translated. It's incredible.
That's correct. And I'll tell you a funny thing, since we're on the subject. We have to go back and forth in translation. This is my preference. I like it more than the simultaneous with the earphones. I think it's more personal. And for the whole seminar, that's me talking and also Kryon talking, we go back and forth. But because I don't know the language, I often step on the next phrase because I won't know when they're done. And sometimes when I say step on, I'll interrupt them by accident. But when I'm channeling, I don't. And I'm realizing, because Kryon understands the language, that there's never an interruption, and yet when I'm speaking, there's a constant interruption. So it's just an interesting thing, and I've gotten so used to it. And by the way, I just love the different languages. I don't know how to speak any of them, but when you, and I don't have to tell you because you're European, but some of the languages in Europe are just not the standard ones, standard, I don't want to offend anybody, not the ones that your neighbors. The ones that are so exotic, like Hungarian, all the it sounds like somebody's from another planet. You wonder, how did they ever learn this very complex language? And so I'm really fascinated.
It's incredible stuff, and again, I'll say, when Kryon is channeling through you, again, I use this word trust, but it is a lot of trust, not knowing what's going to come out, and really, trusting that it's going to make sense to people and to yourself when you listen back. But when you do listen back, you think, well, how did that come from me?
It took me years to trust. In fact, I will give you now. So if you want to know how this works, or you've never talked to somebody who channels or goes into trance, every single person does it differently. It's not a takeover. People think you go into a situation where you literally somebody takes over your body, and that is not the way it works at all. It cannot work that and have the integrity of spirit in you. And so you're not just a mouthpiece. You integrate when you channel, and you use the God inside, and all of that which is your intellect and all of that which is your knowledge and stuff, you step aside and you let spirit come through you. Now, the thing about that is that you have to understand, we have filters. That is what we train, what we believe, and all. You've got to put those aside. So that the degree that you put aside your filters, I would say, is the purity of the message. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, I realized that I had the filters. It wasn't coming through accurately, and I could tell. So I made an agreement, literally, with Spirit. I said, I want to step aside, but I don't want to go away. So it can't be a takeover. So I remember everything because I'm always checking it. And that's the control that Lee Carroll has over his life and his personality. Yeah. And some channels don't remember anything. They just go in the other room and they come back. I remember everything. And in addition, I'm energized. I talk to others who are very, very tired. They have to be helped out of their chairs and things, and I'm ready to go to the disco when I'm done. So it's a different experience.
Yes.
For every single human being. There's no one paintbrush that paints how you channel or how you feel. In my case, as an engineer, it had to be a loving, consistent energy that also was scientifically accurate, had some proofs along the way. And that is when I started realizing it was good. No conflictions at all, and very stable and very loving.
Right, okay. Well, there's multiple questions that I could come from this, but I'm just going to go back in a sense before I do. In your experience as well of friends and family around you, I understand that you didn't have an easy ride when this came forth, and it's still been a bit tricky sometimes in a sense, hasn't it?
I don't want to frighten anybody, but it's true. There is, I would say, a mountain to be climbed when it comes to relationships, both with your parents, those who live with your children, whatever. If they're not on board with this, they will see it as odd and strange. And there's very little that you would do to convince them except to be a compassionate, loving person. In those days, there was a lot less, I would say, acceptance than even today. There's much more acceptance, I would say, to esoteric things in general with the public today than there was then. And I basically lost most of them. Just the way it was, slowly. I mean, employees, friends I had for life, people who had known myself and my children, slowly they all went away. And some of that was because of the religion. They were good Christian people, they still are. But in their belief system, their system says that I am not appropriate, and so they will go away from me. So that's their problem, not mine, and I didn't do anything to chase them away, and we're not evangelistic at all. So, but when they found out, it was uncomfortable for them. And that goes with relationships and children and all of that. So, yes, now it's interesting that it's coming almost full circle today, because a lot of the people who went away are now rediscovering themselves, and they find me. And then they recognize me, and I've had a number of them call and say, wow, I read the book and it feels good. And so there's some things that are happening. But honestly, you're absolutely right. You just have to prepare for some difficulties.
But I've got a lot of love for you, because you've paved the way for other people to come forward and do their own channelings. Without you doing what you did at that time, it would have been more difficult for others to come forward, I believe. And yes, it may have been a rocky road to get there. Had you not have done it, I mean, you don't know the lives that you've affected, do you? That's the issue. With the veil being like it is sometimes, until we go back home and get to have a life review and see these things, you have set the road for a lot of people.
I think I've been told that in things like interviews. I'm not truly thinking about that much.
I know.
If it's so, then it's working. This is not about, as I say, evangelism. This is not something where we want to try to convince anyone of anything. This is something that we're giving information to ask people to look. I mean, open the door and look. If you don't like what you see and it's not helpful, then there's nothing to do. But other than that, there's with no doctrine and no prophet and no rules and all that, you think, well, what have you got? And what we've got is a discovery of a spirituality inside that is just amazing. We have got so much in there that's going to help us to be peaceful, live longer lives, have better relationships, be happier, control synchronicity, all of these things that you've heard about for a long, long time, I found were true. And it all boils down to a compassionate spirit. How do you walk around the city, any city, you see people getting, are they happy or not? Are they angry or not? Are they have quick triggers if somebody cuts them off in traffic or what? How is their life postured? Are they just normally happy, compassionate people or not? And most are not. And so you take a look at that and you say, well, would you rather have something else? And then they say, well, yeah, but how do you do it? And the answer is you start to discover God inside, and it really makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, I was going to go in a different tangent there, but I'm just going to bring it, just bring it back just for in the sense of Kryon as well. You call it an entity from the magnetic service. Now, just for the audience that may not know what that is, just explain that very briefly for us as well.
Okay. That's funny, Kevin, because I didn't know it for years. I had no idea. When I first heard the word, and you have to remember what we were, the habits and the fads were back. I thought we had an angel we could paste on our refrigerator because he was magnets. I had no idea what this meant, and it's only been literally in the last decade. It now fits in and starts to make sense. And without me giving you a whole book and a treatise, I will just tell you just very briefly that the magnetic grid of this planet had to be altered. Now we're getting into the esoteric. In order for our DNA to start growing and having a more spiritual complement, because we have passed this marker called the precession of the equinoxes. Now, this marker, all the indigenous have all known about it. This was the Mayan calendar. This is everything else. This is, if you were into Christianity, it was going to be the rapture, it was going to be the Holocaust, it was going to be all of these things, and everyone knew it was coming. And just to read the scripture, and you'll see, well, we passed it. The Soviet Union fell over, all these things. And Kryon in the late 80s came in and said, you have the potential for moving past all of your prophecies, and the magnetic grid will have to move in order for you to posture yourself into the next esoteric place. And it has to do with DNA. It has to do with numbers of things. I only really saw the science behind it, as I say, on the last decade or so, and they're now realizing we need the magnetic grid for life. This has now been proven by people in space. When you get outside of it, something's different. So they're starting to understand there is a complement there of the magnetics being needed. So Kryon initially was here to move the magnetic field, and then finally he said it would move in Book 1 more than it had in 10. It would move in 10 years more than it had in 100. And it did. And if you can measure it with a compass, you can go back to the internet, you can find out how much it moved in those 10 years. This was from 89, I believe, to 99 or the year 2000 when we were almost at the marker. And so it did. We even have runway numbers being repainted all over the world. Runway numbers are compass headings. It's on the move. And nobody expected that, and it's exactly what happened, and Kryon called it. So this was just one of many things. This is the magnetic service. And this is stuck now that the grid has been moved and all. But it was just his way of saying there's more here than you realize regarding your enlightenment. And also, we have free choice. And we have had free choice to move beyond this survival, warring people that we are. And even the indigenous said that if we get past 2012, things are going to start happening. And they are, if you look at the news, and we can talk about that too.
Yes, yes. Well, I've been blessed to be in the presence of yourself when you're channeling Kryon, and the first thing that came through, which was so obvious, was the amount of love he had for mankind, and he has. What, if anything, would Kryon say about the state of the world affairs as they are now?
He has called it, and he even told us to. He asked us in a very passionate channeling. By the way, what I haven't said, and I don't want this to be a commercial, but on my site, Kryon.com, there are free things, lots of free things, more free things than not, and everything that Kryon ever has said is recorded and is free. And you can go on my site under Kryon.com/free audio and read and listen to it. So it's completely free. We don't know you're there.
Yep.
There was a very impassioned channel a year or so ago that said, do not despair. And what Kryon was saying is, as you shine the light into dark places, the darkness is going to rear up in its last attempt to show that it needs to survive. And things, he said, you're going to see it. You're going to see things that are as dark as you ever imagined. And you're going to wonder where they came from, where they've been, and why now. And this is exactly what has happened. And he said the purpose of this is to coalesce the consciousness. What will we tolerate and what will we not? Will we sit on our hands and let everybody else do it, or will we come to a point that says we will not permit this? We have gone 60 years without a world war, and this is a record, without somebody conquering somebody. And now we're even starting to react to that. If you have a country that still thinks they can plant their flag and it's theirs, that's not the way it is anymore. And the world is starting to see that. So black is becoming blacker and white is becoming whiter. And it's time to choose sides. Now, this is what Kryon said was exactly what was going to take place 2 years before we ever saw what is happening now on the news. So I feel what we're seeing now is exactly what Kryon said. We're starting to see the real, I would say, players. And we have to decide. And this has to do with one country, as you've seen, cannot decide it for all. It's got to be a coalition. It's going to have to be cooperation. We're going to have to swallow hard and have meetings with people we don't like.
That's
or
right.
haven't in the past for political reasons. And it's going to stir up the whole thing. And it is. And in the process, you get to see low consciousness.
Do you think, though, that when a soul comes to this planet to have an experience, that it needs a planet of opposites for it to have such experience? So I'm not saying that the wars and the atrocities that are happening as we speak now are right. I'm saying that is this part of the bigger picture, that it's well, I'll say this, I don't think it needs to be so painful, but do opposites need to exist?
Yep. We didn't come here to suffer. And so the bigger picture shows this, I think, over and over. And if you want to look at what has truly happened in the last 50 years, we have made strides that we never did before. Now, you are European, and nobody more than a European would have an appreciation for what happened after World War II. When they looked around at the aftermath and said, yet again, only about 5 countries have taken turns with war. And it's been for 1,000 years or more. And they said, how can we stop this, because it's going to happen again? And so they started putting things together instead of tearing them apart or isolating them. And you had the idea of a trade organization where countries could start trading together without having the tariffs. That was the beginning of the EU. Now, the EU is not the end-all, and the people would say, well, maybe it won't even survive the times. But it was the beginning and the first time we ever started putting the countries together that used to war with one another. And all of history showed that. And people say, well, is the EU going to survive? And I say, if you want to know the true, I would say, value of the EU, take a look at the currency. Right now, it is 30% higher than the American dollar and has remained that way for over a decade. It is the currency of the world. The euro is the currency. Sorry, it's not the pound at the moment. The euro is the currency of the earth. We sell tickets in euros, even in South America. We sell tickets in euros, or when we used to go to Russia. So this is just to tell you, it is very, very strong. And the idea of putting strong and weak economies together is just folly. If you're an economist, you say, well, it never could work. And it's so far it has. There's going to be some things upcoming with some countries, including Greece and Hungary, and some of the others that are very poor, Poland, and we're going to find out what's going to happen. But we're working on a puzzle that is putting things together instead of tearing them apart. Now, people judge history in the last 2 weeks, and at least in my society, people are not thinking in 50-year blocks. And if you did, you'd see what an amazing thing that humanity has done. It is so attractive what the Europeans have done that South America, which I go to all the time, is considering it. And Brazil may be the leader, and that is to put the 13 countries together in South America in a trading bloc so that they can trade with the EU. And then we'll only perhaps maybe 5 or 6 trading blocs on the earth eventually. But we are starting to put it together and stop isolating and stop surviving by building walls and competing for resources. And so this is a very slow thing that Kryon has said, take a look and congratulate yourselves for what you've done. Now, in the process, you have upset the, what do you want to call it? all of the things that used to control things. So you have the Illuminatis and all of that used to control governments and people and shipping and all, and they're starting to get out of the picture, and you're starting to see the result. And that is, they're not happy at all. They're starting to try to frighten us, and getting into some of the organizations we're seeing now on the television.
Yep.
And it is very fearful. We didn't come here to suffer through this. We came to conquer it.
Yes, yeah, and do you think that's easy though, with our disconnection from who we truly are, and having forgotten that, and having to relearn that must be, it's not easy, is it?
No, it isn't, and you know why, and I will tell you. And Kryon has said this so lovingly. It's not your fault that if you believe that you've been here before many times and you have lived over and over. You have sat here in a very uncomfortable old energy and had to fight your way. Anytime you had any kind of spiritual thoughts that were outside of the norm, you had to fight. And so here you are with a new energy that's completely different, but you're in the habit of doing the same thing you used to. And so we have to then get out of that habit, and we have a lot of information on how to do that. But Kryon is very clear that he understands, and that humanity, especially the old souls right now, the children who are being born right now, have a much better idea of what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are stuck in an old paradigm, working in an old way, thinking in an old way, and reacting in an old way. That is why it is harder for us, especially even the light workers or old souls, or the ones who call themselves spiritual. And then one of the channelings Kryon gave in the UK, where he said, and this is very controversial, and people may not like it, or you can come back to see me, where he said it's time to reevaluate your tradition. Because the tradition of what you would do and what you think is correct or not is also starting to change. And in fact, when you graduate from school and move on to a new level, do you really carry the things you used to do with you? And the answer is no. You learned them, and now you're ready to learn other things. So it's all part of truly a new energy that is here. It's really hollering to us to drop some of the things that we're carrying rocks in our pocket. We don't need to.
Do you think that as well, Lee? Do you think that counts towards the New Age movement in a sense? I don't like that word, but just to sum it up in words that we can understand.
Yes, I expected when I started channeling, Kevin, that the objections would come from the church. And that's my paradigm. I figured because channeling is seen as something that perhaps is not appropriate by the church, that would be my issue. There would be pickets, people complaining. I never have had that in my entire 25-year career. The Christians have left me alone, and God bless them, because they have their own thing. I'm not a threat to them at all. I threatened the New Age. And I threatened their tradition. You're right. And so someone who has been esoteric figures, they know what they're doing. Healing has to happen a certain way. Meditation has to happen a certain way. God is this way or not this way. Here are the rules. Follow them. And these are the things that Kryon has been saying, slowly breaking the paradigm, saying the new age is not the old age.
Well, that's
channeling that just went on. You can hear it just now.
Yes.
In fact, yesterday is called "This Is Not Your Father's New Age."
See, that's interesting, because, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone. And like you've just said there, if someone's got a religious background that they're tied to, whatever religion it is, that's where they need to be, because that's what serves them best. But you look at some of these spiritual gurus, again, these are just words, who have very large followings. They could influence the people in power, but they don't.
And they have. In fact, even in this country, there's tremendous power in the Christian contingent as who makes president and who does not. They always have. These things, I don't think the politics is going to be politics, whatever. It's what we have to do is take care of ourselves for now. We become more compassionate, and we become less, specific in what people have to do or don't have to do, and we give more credibility to the God inside directing us instead of the people who are gurus directing us. I think that we're going to have a great amount of success. And this it flies in the face of what you would say is tradition or even logic.
What you said there, Lee, is so right, and but that's without any judgment.
Yes. And so even Kryon says, you read a Kryon book and you move on. Don't make Kryon your guru. Say, you will grow as you need to grow, and you will find the things you need to find that will soothe you and also inform you to whatever the stage you are in development. It is a beautiful system that says that you'll be in the right place at the right time and meet the right people, and that you don't have to cling on to anyone or any focus on any angelic being, not even Kryon, in order to do this, because it's really a handoff, if you want to think of what this new energy is about, from sitting in front of gurus and channels like me or whatever, and instead handing it off to you are your own channel.
Yes.
And this is where it's going. And Kryon said it doesn't sound like, something you're used to. You want a leader. And what if you all had the same information inside and were discovering it? I want to tell you something that nobody thinks about, Kevin, and I want to tell your listeners. I go all over the world, and wherever I go, there are people who know exactly what I'm talking about, who believe what I believe, and yet they are not invested in any kind of an organized group. They don't have a prophet, they don't have a doctrine, they don't have a church, they don't have buildings, they don't have people that necessarily are meeting, and yet it's intuitive information inside. You awaken to a grander truth, and the truth is that perhaps there's a template inside that is a beautiful spiritual one that is ready to help you, especially in this new energy. And I can't, because you're not me, you can't see this, but when you go to someplace like Vladivostok, Russia, you have to go look that up and find out where that is. And other places I've been where there's just nothing there, and there'll be a small group of people who are old souls and have the same intuitive belief system that I'm telling you about. And that impresses me. This comes from inside and not some external source.
You know, Lee, I've just started channeling as well myself, and I'm the 4th week in now, and I'm on chapter would it be chapter 5 when I start again this week. And one thing it's told me very clearly is, and these are multiple beings coming through. It's not just one. The gift was multiple.
Yes.
And they've told me when they speak, when they're dictating this book, that this is just their truth at the level they're at. You make your own truth up.
Yes. And this is another thing. If I said to somebody there are multiple truths, they would say, you're crazy. There has to be only one. Kryon says this is the singularity of humanity and the linearity that we have to conquer. If you are sitting in a religious organization and your life is beautiful and you are in love with the Savior or whatever it is, you should just simply turn this radio show off because it's working. That's your truth. And you have the love of God inside of you for the stage you are in your life. If you're somebody who's not that way, who's looking for something more, or you've been through that, or you're an older soul, or whatever, this is something perhaps that you are listening to that is your truth and that you are going for. Truth is relative to what I would say, the awakening process and the maturity that you are in. And Kryon has said over and over to me, blessed is the human being who finds God in any place, as long as it is pure, not something that you are told is God and that is not. And you can test that by whether it's loving and compassionate for other humanity, and whether your goal is indeed the compassion instead of anything else that would have an agenda to it. So we are more than non-evangelistic. We accept where everybody is.
Yeah.
This is and people don't understand that as well. The church I was in when we met. Alternate is like that. I mean, you are presenting so many different things for people to listen to and grasp onto and understand and to know that it's such an eclectic and beautiful system that allows people free choice and lets them hear all the information. That's what I'm about.
Absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, yeah, and if people want to see, if you're not happy with the way the world is, for in a sense, just change the way you are to people in your own vicinity. Come from love more, and use that space. As you talk about the absolute power of love in your books as well, use that space and see the world change. See, in front of you.
People say it's silly, and it is ignorant and foolish for us to think that we can love our way out of war, and they don't know the power here. If you're compassionate to your fellow men, it's catchy. What I mean by that, it's attractive, and it really does set a stage. Can you imagine if you had more compassionate people? What would happen eventually when compassion became not just the norm, but what you're striving toward? Even a child knows that when they're born, when they see their parents and they say, "This is my model." Eventually, within a generation, 2, maybe 3, it may even change politics. Literally, when you go there and they're not yelling at each other and they're not calling each other names, which is it's just habit, and it's just typical. It's the way they work. What if there was some true understanding? It would change everything. It would change also how we deal, not just with one another, but country to country. It's a slow change in human nature. And that is what people don't understand. They want fast, very fast results on everything. This is not going to be a fast result. But again, I would invite you to look at what happened in the past 50 years, right where you're sitting. You have not had the kinds of things that you've had in the past. And it's starting to work differently. I think the world is far closer to world peace, even when you watch the news, even with everything you're seeing, than it ever has been before. I really liked the reaction, for instance, and I don't like to get political, but when there was one country who decided to plant their flag and disturb another one, which has been next to them for a very long time, it was so inappropriate, the whole planet decided to take them to task and say, "Stop it," instead of just hoping it would go away, which is what we've done in the past. So we are starting to shift what we want. And what we want is what everybody wants. You want good schools for your children, you want hospitals, you want education, and no war. And this is uniformly what humans want on the planet. And this is starting to shift because we have now the internet and things where we're seeing what's going on. We can get to it quickly. We can make decisions. And this is, Kryon even called it years ago before the internet. He said when everyone can talk to everyone, there can be no more secrets. So these are the kinds of things that we are looking at which are really, truly different than they were 50 years ago.
Yeah, you mentioned war there. When I was channeling just recently, they said that one of the big differences in the dimension they're in is that there's no war, and that when war's over, when there is no war, you've spiritually evolved in a sense.
Yes. Well, you certainly do have. It certainly clears the path for what I will call non-survival thinking.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, Kevin, that when I was going around in the bus in London. The bus tours there.
That's right.
Are really good. They're very good. I mean, there's so many tourists, and I went everywhere. And there's still a lot of history there, and I can remember during the Blitz and the bombings and seeing the pictures and all right there where I was, and I couldn't help but remember that was survival. And who had time for listening to interviews or trying to think about their spirituality or anything? You just wanted to be alive with your children and hope they were okay where you sent them, and and go from day to day with get some food. And that attitude is a survival attitude, and we had been there for years and years, one war after another. Suddenly, we're clear of this, and we are starting to think differently. Now, what I haven't told you is what the sociologists who are spiritual, some of the scientists are also talking about, where we're looking at this marker we passed, this has been predicted by the ancients. This is a much, much older, and I talked about this at Alternatives, this is a much, much older prophecy than anything you'll find in Scripture. This is over 10,000 years old. And it has to do with this wobble of the earth, the precession of the equinoxes, as a time marker. If we would pass it, we're going to move into a higher consciousness. Now, it didn't look like we were, because we were literally headed for World War III, with the Soviets and the Americans with 50,000 nuclear weapons pointed at one another, and NATO and all the other things that were happening there, and the Warsaw Pact. So we didn't look, when I was born, it looked like we were right on target to destroy ourselves with the prediction, and yet it didn't happen. And it didn't happen classically. In fact, the Soviet Union fell over, which is not predicted in Nostradamus or in Scripture. We are literally rewriting a new history. And so this is not fallacy. This prophecy that has been around for a long time is starting to happen. That's why I'm saying this is not something that happened out of the blue, or that it's new because a Kryon said it would. This is all falling right into thousands of pages of prophecy that have been discovered by the indigenous all over the planet. So we're on schedule with something that was targeted that might happen all along. So we did not destroy ourselves. So I like to tell people this so that they know there's a bigger picture. And there's help, if you want to say, literally spiritual help, where the planet's energy is changing, so that we are starting to have, we're going to fight this battle near as much as we had to before. But we have to decide what we want.
Yes, we do. We do. And I'm quite aware of time right now. So I'm just going to move us on a little bit. There's so much we could have talked about. But I'm just going to bring this back to an easier level in a sense as well. That, reading your books as well, one of the things that were key to me as well was that the ideas of discussing fears, abundance in a sense, health and wealth. There's such a wealth of knowledge from your books that, the most simplest day-to-day living as well, you can change a lot from the space you come from, and you can have the life you want. That's the sort of the basis of some of the information I got from your books as well.
Yes, and you can do it without stepping on anyone. You can do it by having compassion and having improved lives of people around you. This is not new. When the prophets walked the earth, everybody wanted to walk next to them because they were attractive, it was fun, and they literally gave you a peaceful countenance. This is mastery within all of us, and that's what we're teaching as possible.
Yes, absolutely. And, there seems to be so much lost knowledge that you are able to tap into. Does it surprise you sometimes?
Yes, but I absolutely believe that the clearer we are on this, the more we are gleaning from all of the experience we've had on the planet in the past, if you believe in past lives. I know this is so. And you just feel better about everything because you've been there and done that. It's not a surprise.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, because I couldn't get the exact figure, how many books have you done?
Well, there's 13 that I have done. And there are 3 more that others have done that are my work commenting around it that I have helped with. So that would be 16? So.
Yes, incredible. And I mean, sometimes just not the sort of repeated knowledge comes through, but sometimes from other texts as well. Do you get a lot of stuff that comes through that's been said in different ways in a sense?
Yes. In fact, Kryon has sat down and said, I bring you information I brought you 2 years ago in different words.
Wow.
We need to hear it over and over, and Kryon is a master at rephrasing. And so it's almost like we're hearing it in a whole new way. But you realize, Kevin, we're very different. Humans are different. We often need different approaches in different ways to find the same thing.
That's right. And when the student is ready, the master will appear.
Oh, that is so true. When after the meeting that we had in the church, I got to meet some of the people, and I realized they were from all walks of life, and many of them had never seen a channeler before, ever. So it was so fun to have them there.
And what would you say is the most important message from the books, in a sense?
To relax and see whether there is God inside. And that, don't despair. In other words, fear is going to be the enemy that we have. If it is intuitive that there's something more inside, and it should show itself, with free choice and asking literally, is it there? It will. And so I just tell people, don't believe me, go do it and see. This is what has changed the lives of people when they say, oh my goodness, you were right. It's always been there.
And how can people find out a bit more about yourself, including up-and-coming events as well, and books, and all the materials that are available on the website?
What's nice is the website is international. Kryon.com is where you're going to find everything, including all of my books. And many of them are available in many, many different languages. Some of them are available more than others, especially, I'm not sure about the UK, but there's always Amazon, and you have that, and you do. So there are ways of seeing it. Also, my favorite way now is that Your Society and mine are also on Kindle, and that this is the electronic books. They're much less expensive. They're easy to put on your computer or your pads or whatever and read. And so I say that as well at Amazon. Kindle is a very good way of finding the books and not having to have a heavy thing to carry around.
Okay. And just one final question as well. What would be the wish for your work in the future? How would you want this work to continue when you're not here? And I hate to say that because I don't want you to go anywhere, because I think it's fantastic what you're doing. But where would you like to see the work go?
What I really would like is for the work eventually to stop because we don't need it anymore. That's what I want. That's what Kryon has said, that this is a passing. To actually line up, read, and try to listen and all that, we're going to get it internally eventually. I know that it's going to take a while, but that's what I'd like to see in the real future. And the other thing is I want to see, and I think I will, the work affect people's lives and continue to make a gentler planet.
Well, Lee, Carroll, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Kevin.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.